Have you ever walked away from a conversation wondering if she was interested in you? Or if you were just imagining it? Maybe she smiled a little longer than expected. Maybe she kept finding reasons to stay nearby. Maybe there was something in the way she looked at you that felt different, but then the doubt creeps in. Was she flirting? Or was she simply being friendly? The truth is, most men miss the signs entirely, not because women aren't showing interest, but because attraction rarely announces itself in obvious ways. It hides inside small behaviors, subtle shifts, and tiny moments that seem insignificant until you know what you're looking for. And if you don't recognize those moments, you can spend weeks, months, even years second-guessing yourself. You replay conversations in your head. You analyze text messages. You wonder whether there was something there that you failed to see. The frustrating part is that attraction often leaves clues long before words ever do. And once you understand those clues, a lot of confusion starts to disappear. Because women usually don't communicate interest the way men expect. They aren't always direct. They don't typically walk up and announce exactly how they feel. Instead, attraction tends to reveal itself through behavior, subtle behavior, the kind that most people overlook every single day. That's why so many opportunities quietly pass by unnoticed. A man assumes she isn't interested. A conversation ends. Life moves on. And only later does he realize the signs may have been there the entire time. So let's start with one of the strongest indicators you'll ever see. Eye contact. Simple, powerful, and surprisingly misunderstood. Most people think eye contact is just eye contact. It isn't. When someone is genuinely drawn to you, their attention behaves differently. Their eyes stay with you longer, their focus lingers. There's a noticeable hesitation before they look away. It's subtle, but once you see it, it's hard to miss. Think about it. People naturally give their attention to what captures their interest. And attention is one of the most valuable things anyone can offer. When a woman repeatedly locks eyes with you and seems comfortable staying there for an extra second or two, something important may be happening beneath the surface. Sometimes you'll notice her expression soften. Sometimes her eyebrows lift slightly when she sees you. Sometimes it feels as though the rest of the room disappears for a brief moment. These reactions aren't random. They're often emotional responses happening before conscious thought even catches up. And here's what makes this sign so powerful. Most people can fake words. Very few can consistently fake attention. But eye contact is only the beginning, because attraction doesn't just show up in how she looks at you. It often reveals itself in where she chooses to be. Pay attention to proximity. Human beings naturally move closer to people they enjoy being around. It's instinctive. We rarely think about it. We simply do it. If a woman repeatedly places herself near you, even when she has other options, that detail matters more than most people realize. Maybe you're in a group setting and she somehow ends up beside you more than once. Maybe she chooses the seat closest to yours. Maybe she finds reasons to remain within your space even after the conversation should have ended. On the surface, these moments seem ordinary, but attraction often hides inside ordinary moments. Women are generally very aware of personal space, so when that space starts shrinking, it's worth paying attention, especially when the pattern repeats itself. Then there's another signal that can completely change the dynamic. Touch. Not dramatic touch. Not obvious touch. The small kind. The almost accidental kind. A light tap on your arm during a story. A brief touch on your shoulder while laughing. A gentle brush against your hand that seems to happen just a little too naturally. These moments might appear insignificant. They're not. Physical contact creates connection. And when a woman feels comfortable introducing even small amounts of touch into an interaction, she's often testing the emotional atmosphere between you. She's gathering information, seeing how you respond, feeling the energy of the exchange. And the interesting thing is that these touches rarely happen in isolation. They usually appear alongside other signs. Which brings us to one of the most fascinating indicators of all. Mirroring. Because sometimes attraction shows itself without either person saying a single word. You lean forward. A few moments later, she does the same. You cross your arms. She subtly shifts her posture too. You slow your movements. Somehow her rhythm begins matching yours. Most people never notice this happening. Yet psychologists have observed it for decades. When two people feel connected, their behavior naturally starts to synchronize, not intentionally, not consciously, almost like two separate conversations are happening at the same time, one with words and another happening quietly beneath the surface. And once you understand what that silent conversation is revealing, you'll start noticing an entirely different sign that most men overlook. And that silent conversation often reveals more than words ever could. Because when two people are genuinely drawn toward each other, little signals begin stacking on top of one another. Each one might seem insignificant by itself, but together, they start forming a pattern that's difficult to ignore. One of the clearest examples is her smile. Not the polite smile people give out of courtesy, the real one, the kind that appears naturally when she sees you. Think about the difference. A forced smile arrives and disappears quickly. It serves a purpose. A genuine smile lingers. It reaches her eyes. It changes the energy of the interaction, and when a woman finds herself smiling around you more often than she does around others, something deeper may be happening beneath the surface. The same goes for laughter. Have you ever noticed how certain people suddenly become much funnier in the eyes of someone who likes them? It's fascinating. The joke isn't necessarily better, the story isn't necessarily more entertaining, yet somehow she laughs, not because she's pretending, but because attraction amplifies enjoyment. The emotional connection changes how moments are experienced. When she's consistently laughing, engaging, and helping the conversation feel lighter, she's often communicating something without saying it directly. She's showing that your presence affects her mood, and that's a detail worth paying attention to. But attraction isn't only revealed through emotional reactions. Sometimes it shows itself through curiosity. And curiosity can be one of the strongest indicators of all, because people invest attention into what interests them. If a woman begins asking questions that move beyond surface-level conversation, that's rarely accidental. Anyone can ask where you're from. Anyone can ask what you do for work. But when she starts exploring who you are beneath the obvious answers, the dynamic changes. Maybe she wants to know what motivates you. Maybe she asks about your future plans. Maybe she becomes interested in the experiences that shaped you. At first, these questions can seem casual, but they often reveal something important. She's not gathering information. She's building understanding. She's trying to see the person behind the conversation. And that's where many men miss the significance. They focus on what she's saying instead of why she's asking, because genuine curiosity usually comes from emotional investment. Then there are the compliments. And this is where attraction often hides in plain sight. Most men expect compliments to be obvious, but they rarely are. Instead of commenting on your appearance directly, she may notice something more personal, something specific. The way you think, the way you handle pressure, your sense of humor, your confidence in a particular situation. These observations matter because they reveal attention. People don't notice details they aren't paying attention to. So when she points out something unique about you, she's often revealing that she's been observing more closely than you realize. And once that attention is there, another interesting shift tends to happen. She becomes interested in the things that matter to you, not because she's suddenly obsessed with your hobbies, but because she's interested in understanding your world. Let's say you mention a passion you've had for years. Maybe it's a sport, maybe it's music, maybe it's something completely unexpected. Most people will acknowledge it and move on, but someone who feels a genuine pull toward you often does something different. She leans in. She asks another question, then another. Before long, she's exploring the topic with you. Sometimes she'll even hint at wanting to experience it herself, and that's what makes this so revealing. She's not connecting with the activity, she's connecting through the activity. She's looking for bridges, shared experiences, new opportunities to spend time together. Because attraction naturally looks for reasons to create more connection. And in today's world, one of the biggest places that connection reveals itself is somewhere most people check dozens of times a day: their phone. Texting has become its own language, its own emotional ecosystem, and if you know what to look for, it can tell you a lot. Not just through what she says, but through how she says it. A woman who isn't interested usually keeps conversations efficient, short replies, minimal engagement, little effort. The interaction fades naturally, but when she's excited to talk to you, the energy feels different. The conversation keeps finding new life. One topic leads to another. Questions create more questions. The exchange continues long after it technically could have ended. And then there are the moments when she reaches out first. No obvious reason, no urgent purpose. Just a simple message, a random thought, a shared observation, a funny story she wanted you to hear. Those moments matter, because attention follows interest. And when someone consistently finds reasons to bring you back into their day, it's rarely random. But even texting can't compete with what happens face to face, because that's where body language starts speaking again. And body language is incredibly difficult to fake. You can hear it in conversation, you can see it in posture, you can feel it in the energy someone brings into an interaction. Watch how she positions herself around you. Notice whether she naturally turns toward you, whether her posture feels open, whether she seems fully engaged rather than partially distracted. These details seem small, yet they often reveal comfort, trust, and attraction long before words ever catch up. And then there's one signal that confuses people more than almost any other, because at first glance it doesn't even look like attraction. In fact, it can look like the exact opposite. It starts with playful challenges, unexpected comments, and a kind of teasing that creates an entirely different energy between two people. And that's exactly why teasing can be so revealing. When someone feels comfortable enough to playfully challenge you, joke with you, or create that light back and forth tension, it often means they've stopped treating the interaction like a formal exchange. The walls come down. The conversation becomes more personal, more relaxed. In other words, they're no longer just talking to you, they're enjoying you. But here's where a lot of people make a mistake. The moment they recognize one sign, they immediately jump to a conclusion. A smile becomes proof. A compliment becomes certainty. A text message becomes a relationship in their mind before anything has actually happened. That's not how attraction works. Real attraction rarely announces itself through a single behavior. It reveals itself through patterns. Patterns that repeat. Patterns that reinforce each other. And that's the distinction that changes everything. Because one signal can mean many things. Several signals appearing together begin telling a much clearer story. Think about it. If she's maintaining eye contact, finding reasons to continue conversations, showing genuine curiosity about your life, remembering small details, and creating opportunities to interact with you, you're no longer looking at isolated moments. You're looking at consistency, and consistency is where clarity starts to emerge. The goal isn't to become a detective analyzing every movement she makes. In fact, the more you obsess over individual signs, the more likely you are to miss the bigger picture. Attraction isn't something you solve, it's something you observe, patiently, naturally, without forcing an outcome. Because the people who are best at recognizing interest aren't constantly searching for proof. They're simply present enough to notice what's already there. And that presence creates something powerful. Confidence. Not the loud kind, not the performative kind. The quiet kind. The kind that comes from understanding what you're seeing instead of endlessly questioning yourself. When you begin recognizing these patterns, conversations start feeling different. You stop second-guessing every pause. You stop replaying every interaction after it's over. You stop wondering whether you're imagining things. And instead, you become more comfortable responding honestly in the moment. That's the real advantage. Not knowing that someone likes you, knowing that you no longer need constant certainty before being yourself. Because attraction tends to flow best when neither person is trapped inside their own head. If she shows curiosity, share a little more. If she creates connection, meet her there. If she brings warmth into the interaction, allow yourself to return it. Not because you're following a strategy, because you're participating in the moment that's already unfolding. And something interesting happens when you approach it that way. The pressure disappears. You stop treating every interaction like a test. You stop searching for the perfect move. You stop feeling like one wrong word will somehow ruin everything. Instead, you become engaged, attentive, relaxed, and ironically, those qualities are often more attractive than any technique people spend years trying to learn. Because genuine connection rarely grows through perfection. It grows through comfort, through mutual interest, through small moments that gradually build trust and familiarity over time. That's why understanding these signs isn't really about decoding women. It's about becoming more aware of human behavior, more aware of how attraction quietly reveals itself before it's ever spoken aloud. And once you understand that, social interactions begin to feel less confusing, less like a guessing game, less like something hidden behind an impossible puzzle. You start seeing what was already there. The lingering glance, the extra question, the effortless smile, the subtle effort someone makes when they genuinely enjoy your presence. None of it is magic. None of it requires mind reading. It simply requires attention. The kind of attention that notices patterns instead of chasing certainty. Because attraction is often quieter than people expect. It doesn't always arrive with grand declarations or obvious confessions. Sometimes it shows up in the smallest moments, the moments most people overlook. And perhaps that's the most interesting part of all. The signs were never hidden. They were simply waiting for someone calm enough to notice them. And once you do, you'll realize that the strongest signals are rarely the loudest ones. They're the ones that keep appearing when nobody is trying to force them at all.